Picture this. It's Sunday night. You've had all weekend to work on that important project, but suddenly it's 11 p.m. and you're staring at a blank screen. Your stomach churns as you realize the deadline is tomorrow morning. You promise yourself never again, but deep down you know this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. We've all been there. That workout program you keep postponing. That creative project collecting dust. Those important emails you swear you'll answer later. The guilt builds, the stress mounts, and yet we still find ourselves watching one more video, scrolling one more feed, anything but the task we know we should be doing. But here's what most people don't realize. When you procrastinate, you're not being lazy. Your brain is actually working exactly as it's designed to, just not in the way that serves you. Today, we're going to hack that system with a method so simple, you'll wonder why you haven't tried it before. I want you to think back to your last procrastination episode. What were you avoiding? What excuses did you make? And most importantly, how did you feel when you finally had to rush through it at the last minute? That shame, that stress, that desperate scrambling, that's what we're going to eliminate today. Let's talk about what's really happening when you procrastinate. Your brain has a part called the amygdala, which is essentially your brain's fear center. When you think about starting a difficult task, your amygdala reacts as if you're facing physical danger. This triggers what psychologists call the avoidance response, that powerful urge to do anything else. Here's something fascinating. Researchers at Case Western Reserve University found that this resistance peaks right before we start a task. It's like standing at the edge of a diving board, the hardest part is taking that first step. Once you're in motion, that resistance fades dramatically. This explains why you can spend hours dreading something that, once started, turns out to be manageable. There's also something called the Zeigarnik effect, named after psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik. She noticed that waiters could remember complex orders perfectly, but only until the meals were delivered. Afterward, the details vanished from their memory. That's our brain's natural tendency to cling to unfinished business. This is why TV cliffhangers keep you hooked. Your brain craves completion, and we can use this to our advantage. Think about how this plays out in your daily life. When you leave a movie halfway through, don't you keep wondering how it ends? When you pause a video game mid-level, don't you feel that itch to finish? That same psychological principle can be your secret weapon against procrastination. Now, let me introduce you to the 10-minute rule that changes everything. Unlike complicated productivity systems, this method works with your brain's natural wiring rather than against it. Here's exactly how to do it. First, identify one specific task you've been avoiding. Not a vague category like work or exercise, but something concrete like, write the introduction for my report. The more specific, the better. My friend Sarah used this to finally start her novel after years of delay. Her first goal wasn't to write a book, but to write one terrible paragraph about the main character. Next, set up your environment for success. If it's a work task, open all necessary documents. If it's cleaning, gather your supplies. Then set a timer for exactly 10 minutes using your watch, mobile phone, or a dedicated app. There's something psychologically powerful about that ticking clock. My buddy Mark keeps an old-fashioned egg timer on his desk just for this purpose. The physical act of winding it helps shift his brain into work mode. When the timer starts, begin immediately with the easiest possible version of the task. If you're writing, just type whatever comes to mind. If you're cleaning, start with one small area. The key is to remove all expectations of quality. Your only job is to keep going until the timer beeps. My college classmate Julie calls this her ugly first draft approach. She gives herself permission to write complete nonsense for those first 10 minutes, and more often than not, it transforms into something usable. Here's where the magic happens. When the timer goes off, pause and ask yourself, do I want to stop? About 80% of the time, you'll choose to continue because the hardest part, starting, is already behind you. That initial resistance has faded, and you've built enough momentum to keep going. Let's talk about how to apply this to different procrastination scenarios you might be facing. For creative blocks like writing or designing, try what I call the ugly first draft approach. Tell yourself you'll create something intentionally bad for just 10 minutes. This removes the pressure of perfection that often paralyzes us. My friend David, a graphic designer, uses this to overcome creative blocks. He starts by deliberately making the worst possible design he can imagine, which ironically often leads to his best ideas. If you're dealing with overwhelming projects, break them down before using the 10-minute rule. For example, instead of work on business plan, list out small components like outline, marketing strategy, or research competitors. Then tackle these one at a time in 10-minute bursts. My neighbor Lisa used this method to finally organize her chaotic garage. She'd do just 10 minutes per day, focusing on one small section at a time. For people who say they don't have time, here's a reality check. The average person spends over 2 hours daily on social media. You absolutely have 10 minutes. It's about priority, not availability. Try attaching your 10-minute sessions to existing habits, like doing one right after your morning coffee. My gym partner Tom started doing this with his email inbox. He checks messages for just 10 minutes while drinking his coffee in the morning. For longer focus sessions, try the Pomodoro technique. Work in 25-minute bursts with 5-minute breaks. But always start with that first 10 minutes to overcome initial resistance. What makes the 10-minute rule truly transformative isn't just the tasks you complete, it's how it rewires your relationship with productivity. Each small win builds confidence. Each completed session proves to yourself that you're capable of taking action. I've seen friends transform their lives using this simple method. My childhood friend Emily went from chronic procrastinator to published author by writing just 10 minutes each morning. My coworker Jason became the most productive person in our office by starting every work session with this technique. Even my uncle Bob, who'd been putting off retirement planning for years, finally got his finances in order using 10-minute daily sessions. The key is consistency, not perfection. Some days you'll stop after 10 minutes, and that's okay. Other days, those 10 minutes will turn into hours of productive flow. My yoga instructor Maria taught me an important lesson about this. She says even on days when she only does 10 minutes of practice, she's maintaining the habit, which is what matters most in the long run. To make this stick, I recommend tracking your streaks. Mark a calendar for each day you complete at least one 10-minute session. Seeing that chain of successes creates powerful momentum. Also consider finding an accountability partner, someone you check in with daily about your 10-minute commitments. My friend group has a WhatsApp thread where we share our daily 10-minute wins, and it's amazing how motivating that simple act can be. Here's what I want you to do right now. Pause this video. Yes, really, hit pause. Set a timer for 10 minutes and pick one small thing you've been putting off. It could be as simple as organizing your workspace or drafting that email you've been avoiding. When you're done, jump into the comments below and tell me what you accomplished. I'll personally respond to as many as I can to keep you accountable. Because here's the truth. In the time it takes to watch cat videos, you could have already made progress on what truly matters. Your future self, the one who's less stressed, more accomplished, and finally in control, is waiting. All it takes is 10 minutes to start becoming that person today. So, what will your first 10 minutes be? Will it be finally starting that project? Writing that first page? Taking that first step toward your goals? The power is in your hands, or rather, in your next 10 minutes. Thank you for watching.